when we say these are the things you do well and this is what you're putting out there, doesn't mean you turn down the other work if it comes in. But what you start to realize is if you're putting out generic branding, they're not thinking of you for anything.
Right.
So you're going to miss the other work anyway. You're also not going to get the work they would have thought of you for.
We are back with another episode of the Cold Start Project, the only podcast I'm aware of about the unexpected challenges of scaling to let you know what's going to happen so that you don't get punched in the nose. I'm here with TJ Gamble of Jamersan. It's an agency. Tell us a little bit about what you do, TJ.
Yeah, Jamersan is an e-commerce development agency. That's the easy explanation. We build websites that sell things. Really focus mostly on the Magento e-commerce platform. And that's the simple explanation. And I will admit, too, that this is the only podcast I'm aware of trying to keep you from getting punched in the nose. So I'm going to concur on that one.
It's very important because the stuff you were doing is not the stuff that you need to be doing. And let's dig into that because you've had your own journey there, TJ, haven't you, about what you were doing for quite a while and then getting to 7-figure scaling, right? So tell us a little bit about the situation that you found yourself in a decade ago and why that was such a struggle to get out of.
Yeah, it's what I like to say when people ask where we're located is that we are strategically located in the middle of nowhere in beautiful Opelika, Alabama. And so I started this agency as a kid, basically in college. We've been in business now for about 20 years. And so I came to college here at Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama in the early days of the internet. And during those days, there were no jobs in web development, much less e-commerce development. And so if you wanted one, you could find one in Atlanta or you could move from the West Coast. And I'm from a very, very small town. At the time I lived in that town, it was a population of about 200. I think it's a population of about 150 now. And so this town, this metro area, Auburn, Opelika, is it's the biggest town I've ever lived in. And so, my wife and I didn't want to move, and I just founded an agency. I'm like, this doesn't look that hard. Let's start building websites. My first website was e-commerce. I quickly found that e-commerce was a lot easier to justify the cost because people could see the ROI. So we, soon after founding, started focusing in e-commerce. But being an e-commerce development agency in a geography that has no enterprise e-commerce, it presents its own challenges. And that's, I think that's mainly what you wanted to talk about today and kind of how we went about overcoming those. But that's really the background. Small town guy, wanted to stay in a small town. And so, that put a lot of limitations that maybe other agencies in big geographies don't have to deal with, like finding talent and finding customers. Because Lord knows we all need customers if we're going to stay in business, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there you are. You're in a relatively new industry, and I know it doesn't look it for those who are seeing us on the video as opposed to listening live, but I'm actually older than TJ.
Uh-oh.
Quite a bit older. And it's a secret. It's the beard.
It's the hat, man. It's the hat.
Yeah, that too. As well, yes, you're right. If I got rid of that, we'd see old Baldy poking up there, and that would be a bit of a hint. So there you are. You're kind of in the middle of nowhere, as you say. And a lot of people, especially in that era, I mean, in this era, we're used to, okay, I can go out and I can get customers who are far away from me and they'll buy still. It's more common. But back then, yeah. Who are you? And can't I get this next door? Can't you be next door even if I like you and want to hire you? So what kind of challenges did you run into there and how did you overcome them?
Well, even today, for a lot of non-sophisticated merchants or non-sophisticated businesses, geography is a qualifying point. Anytime you're selling anything to anyone, you want to reduce friction and you want to build trust. And that's really what an e-commerce website is about. And so when you're local to them, that builds some trust. And so when they can't really determine over the phone, especially if they don't understand what they're asking for, and many merchants don't understand what they're asking for with e-commerce, really the deciding factor is which one of these people do I trust the most And oftentimes that comes down to the guy they probably never will see, but they can see because he's 7 miles away. And so for years, that was almost an impossible hurdle. It really took us about 10, 12 years before we started significantly overcoming that hurdle at scale. And it's really around, how do you build more trust than the guy they can see? And so, once you get to a certain size agency and you're doing certain size projects, it may be possible to fly to every client and visit them and do those kinds of things. But, we're still kind of in between. We're doing big projects, but it would be a significant cost to a merchant to have, one or two of my team members show up to actually meet with them and talk for a week. So some clients choose to do it, some clients don't. So that's always been the biggest challenge, is figuring out ways to boost that trust factor. And that can come from expertise in your field and, logos. If you're a partner, like we do Magento development, becoming a Magento partner was a big step in overcoming that. Okay, these guys have the official stamp of approval from the platform. That adds a lot of weight. I was a top 50 Magento contributor for 2017. That carries a lot of weight. Getting on stages. We go to every single Magento event, major event in the United States, and we speak at a lot of those. And so that helps build some of that trust as well. You can do it through partnerships and referrals. When someone they trust recommends you, then that carries a lot of weight with that merchant as well. So there's a lot of ways of doing that. You just kind of have to figure out what works for your business.
Okay. So it certainly sounds like specializing, doubling down on, this is what we represent, these are the platforms that we work with, and getting specific about that and not trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest factor, is how do you build trust in these merchants' minds? And so when you start to specialize, it's a couple of things. With partnerships, you want to specialize to build some trust with your partnerships, but also be memorable. And with merchants, you want to build trust and you want to be memorable, because when you're having a touch point with a partner or a merchant, then that may not be the time they're ready to buy or refer someone to you. And so when you specialize, that shows that that's your area of focus, and you can go very deep in that area of focus and become an expert, someone that is more so an expert than just somebody that does that amongst 15 or 20 other things. And so you get that expertise, but the key is also being top of mind. And for instance, this was the biggest key, I think, for us that took a while, that we didn't really understand. Everybody talks about, the riches are in the niches, and, all of those phrases you hear online are niches. I apologize, depending on where you're from. But it doesn't rhyme with riches, so we gotta say it as niches, right? So it's a matter of going deep and making sure people remember what you're about. And when you're a generalist, it's hard for people to remember exactly what you're about. And when an opportunity comes to them, you don't necessarily float to top of mind. Mm-hmm. So how we attack that is making sure you're constantly reinforcing a small subset of your branding to your partners. For instance, we really do automotive e-commerce very well. There's a lot of complexities in automotive e-commerce. Aces and Pies, which is the least standard data standardization in the entire world. There's a lot of difficulties with automotive data, and we handle those things well. So when we go out there, if we're going out and we're talking to someone that is not in the e-commerce space, then we're going to usually say we're the Magento guys, and they remember us as the Magento guys. And when they have an opportunity that is e-commerce or Magento related, then they think of us and they send us that opportunity. But when you're dealing with partners in the e-commerce space, that is not enough, because everybody they talk to is a Magento guy. And so you have to continue to refine that depending on your audience. So for those people, we're automotive Magento guys, or to broaden that out a little more, we do man stuff really well. Automotive, outdoor, hunting, fishing, barbecue grills, those types of things. If you're going to be selling fashion, then, technically we could do it. But if they want something outside of the technical support, then they could probably find a better agency.
That being clear on who you are and what you stand for can be so scary for people who are new to business. And I'm sure you went through it. And I've had this problem myself where I'm good at a ton of things, right? And I keep talking about stuff. And sometimes people will come back and say, I didn't know you did that, or I didn't think of you for that. And it's my own fault. I don't get mad at anybody but myself in that case, right? So how can people overcome that fear? What's the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you really just have to jump. And a lot of people, and myself included, it's one of those where, well, if we put that branding out there, they're not going to think of us for this other thing over here, and we're going to miss that business. Well, here's the important thing to consider. When we say these are the things you do well and this is what you're putting out there, doesn't mean you turn down the other work if it comes in. But what you start to realize is if you're putting out generic branding, they're not thinking of you for anything.
Right.
So you're going to miss the other work anyway. You're also not going to get the work they would have thought of you for. And so, you have to make sure you're top of mind. But once you build a relationship with someone, once you strengthen it, once they understand what you do, then to that person, you can start peeling back the curtain a little more and start saying, hey, we also do these other things. Or, and you can even change that branding. If you get to where you don't want to be the guy that's just in some small niche, well, you can expand that out a little more. And as you grow, you'll want to expand that out. You may have sources for automotive leads and sources for outdoor and power sports leads or something like that. Like you can have different branding to different people if that benefits you in some way. But it's once you can't overcome your hurdles of scaling, give it a try. Just give it a try. And you don't have to broadcast the same branding to everybody. Keep your generic branding and then start focusing with a few key contacts. Watch the results and then send me a gift or something thanking me later because you finally figured it out.
Okay. How long do you think that somebody should persist with that specific branding to see, am I getting some results here? I find people give up too soon.
Yeah, agency space doesn't move that fast. That's one of the biggest frustrations any business owner has, especially me. I'm impatient. I want it now. I mean, it's out there. Why can't I take it? There's opportunity. Why can't we seize them all? So being impatient is not necessarily a bad thing when it comes to being a business owner. You want to be constantly pushing and trying to ride that fine line of what you can and can't achieve. But results take time. We're just now reaping results of things we did a year and a half ago. For instance, we started a YouTube channel, and we're just now starting to see the results of that. And we've been pretty consistent with that for 18 months now. So if you're expecting to start putting that messaging out there, and then 3 months from now, your business is just transformed because of it, then maybe your expectations are a little unrealistic. I would say give it at least a couple of years of really pushing, and not to say you won't see any results immediately, because I think if you find the right people, you will see results immediately. Mm-hmm. But it really takes time for you to start building those relationships and start, harboring the actual reward of that.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear you say it's going to take some time, right? And it does require that level of commitment. There are new contacts that you can meet who are just natural networkers, for anybody who's listening and is interested in this stuff, who will turn around and start broadcasting the message you gave them about yourself to the right people within 24 hours. They will immediately do it. However, you have to be meeting those people, and you have to be clear on your messaging. Otherwise, you're going to be wishy-washy. They'll send out a wishy-washy message. So, but for everyone else, there's MasterCard, right? So you've got to stick with that message, and it is going to. It's on the exponential growth curve. It's not on the linear growth curve, right? It creeps up slowly,
Exactly.
and then there's some big advantage, like you said about your YouTube channel, where it starts to kick in after a while. But most people give up too soon. Their belief in their success is based on a shiny object instead of themselves, and that's really sad. So, okay, so what's something that people listening can do today, TJ, to get themselves on the track and maybe sort of psych themselves up a little bit to, yeah, okay, I'm going to commit to this. And even though, I planted the seed, I'm not going to dig it up every day and look, because that'll kill it, right? But I'm going to plant it and let it stay there and feel good about that for a while and keep watering it.
Yeah, like you said, it goes back to networking. I mean, that's the thing. It's one of the sayings we have around here is you never can tell what spark is going to start a fire. So just go around throwing out sparks, right? And sooner or later, you'll have a fire. I mean, sorry if you're in California. Don't mean to offend anybody, but that's just the way this game is played. It is a networking in bulk sort of deal, and it'll all boil down to where you have 10 close partnerships that you actually do something with. But if you didn't have conversations with 1,000 people, you wouldn't have found those 10 close partners. So right now, if I were starting from ground zero, or heck, what I probably need to be doing this afternoon, even as far along in the game as we are, is sitting down and finding people that do something complementary to what we do and trying to network with those people. And the more you can bring those people opportunities, the quicker they'll bring you opportunities. That's the fastest way to make it happen, is to go find an opportunity for somebody else. And then, that builds relationships real quick and real strong.
I appreciate very much the realistic timeframes and numbers ratios that you've provided here. That, it's going to take you 100 good conversations to find one great key contact, right? That it's going to take you a couple years to develop the branding, messaging out there, and the critical mass to get known as the so-and-so people. Whatever it is, right? And if you keep changing every 3 months, well, I'm a web designer, I'm in e-commerce, so I train dolphins, and then it's never going to happen, right? And so this commitment is really important. TJ, how can people get a hold of you? Who are the people at the right level of business to be able to get the most out of working with you in your agency?
Yeah, we typically say we work with established brands. And so websites that are doing $1 million plus in sales, on up to, our clients range from $1 million to hundreds of million in online revenue. So that's usually who we do best with, someone that has a site and wants to kind of take it to the next level. As far as getting in touch with me, our website is jamersan.com. It's spelled a little crazy, but it's jamersan.com. You could submit the contact form on there. You can find me on social media, just about any platform, at ecommerceaholic. And if you can't spell ecommerceaholic, then I probably can't help you anyway, because you can't spell. Now, it's difficult, but Google it. It's not that. There's no one else using that branding as far as I know, so I shouldn't be too hard to find.
Good deal. All right, TJ, is there anything left that we haven't hit on that you would like to share with folks who are working with their agencies and have achieved some success? They know how to get some projects and that, and they're thinking about, okay, what do I need to do to move forward here?
Yeah, it goes back to, kind of what you were saying a second ago, in that you better love what you're doing. I've been doing this for 20 years now. It's an up and down game. The economy has been strong for quite some time now. It won't always be that way. So it's going to be easy, and it's going to be difficult, but it's always going to be work. There is not some plateau you're going to reach to where all of a sudden things are easy. And so you better be ready to put in the work and do the things you need to do. to make the business happen, because no matter how big you get, no matter how much money you make, you're always going to have problems that you have to overcome. And all I ask my team for is, next month, let's have new problems, because that means we solve the ones this month. And I think that was my biggest misconception starting a business, is that eventually we would get to this green pasture to where things were just easy and simple, and all the processes were in place and everything was just working smooth. And I would just be taking the barrels full of money and depositing them into the bank and buying Ferraris and Lamborghinis with them. Not to say you can't make a lot of money doing it, because, you can, but there's always going to be work the bigger you get. Sometimes the bigger those problems are. So, be in it for the right reasons and be ready to put some effort into it for the long haul.
Great. Couldn't agree more. Well, thanks for being my guest today, TJ. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks.